thanks for coming up, and I really do hope you have a terrific year. Thanks so much. Oh, thank you. Thank you. For the adults, I was wondering if we might take just an extra moment to look at this line that is part of the story. The voice comes from the crowd. This is my beloved son. Listen to him. Because as soon as I read that, it was sort of this question popped into my head. Do we? Do you and I listen to Jesus? Now, the problem, if there's a problem with that question, it might be too easy. Because I think the typical answer for probably most of us is sometimes, maybe most of the time, but we probably can't all say, oh yeah, or we probably aren't you're here, for heaven's sakes, you're not likely to say, nope, never listen to the Lord. But I thought a better question might be to ask, who and what are we listening to? Who and what do you and I listen to during the course of our day? And I think if you give it a little thought, you'll realize that we hear a lot of voices. Some of them might have the flavor of the Lord. A lot of them don't. Let me just give you an example, like advertisements. You know, we live in an age where it doesn't matter where you are, you're going to be bombarded with advertisements. Whether that's, phones, social media, still old-fashioned billboards, TV, even movies. You go to the movies and you see all these ads. And that can be nice, Right now, I do not need a car, but in a few years, my little thing is eventually going to wear out, and it would be nice to see some ads about cars that save me the trouble of looking it up. So ads can be, on the one hand, just this wonderful thing, information. But on the other hand, ads, do they not convey subtle messages to us? Typically, an ad, they want to sell you something, so they want you and I to think that, something's wrong. Something is wrong here, and we can help you fix it. And that something that's wrong is often about us or about our lives. Once your life isn't as good as it might be because you have yet to go on a cruise on this amazing ship. Or, oh, I'm so sorry, you don't actually look the way you should. You don't wear the right clothes, or you don't smell the right way, or whatever it is. There's something wrong with you. And we hear that message over and over. And I would hope you would appreciate that is not the voice of the Lord. The voice of the Lord would not look at us and say, wow, you're not very good. The voice of the Lord would be a loving voice. Sure, it'd be a love that might encourage us to do better in some area, but it's not those ads. If I can give you a quick example of that, I got on somebody's mailing list, and for the last couple months, I've been getting ads from a leisure clothing company. And for the last couple months, they've been wanting to sell me things related to beach wear. Well, I don't have any need for this. I have everything that I might want. But when you open up the ad, the very first thing you see in the email is a beautiful picture of a beach. And typically, it'd be something like people gathered around a fire at sunset, or maybe it is people surfing. And you get this image, this feeling comes out of these pictures of like, wow, wouldn't my life be better if I had this kind of carefree surfer kind of life? And you get thinking like, wow, my life would be better if I was in California or Hawaii and not in Ruskin. And of course, I don't think that's a good voice to listen to. And it's only been really just a couple weeks now that I noticed that despite the fact that I know what this email that comes up every couple of days, I know what it is likely to be. And that there's no reason for me to click on it, to open it up. I notice that I am opening it up because somehow I've tuned into this little voice and I want to hear this. I want to there's a place that's better or something like that. And now that I'm aware of it, I just need to be a little more careful about that. Maybe enjoy the pictures just because they're beautiful pictures, but maybe I need to be careful about listening to that voice. For the adults, you would appreciate too, news is like this. News, on the one hand, on the surface of it's wonderful. We need facts, and we want people to tell us what's going on. What do we need to know? That's great. But we also know that any given news source, they have the opportunity to choose what facts they want to tell us. It's the same thing, all the controversy about schools. As a teacher, I can tell you, okay, my job's to teach physics. One of the things I had to teach was nuclear physics. I could do that in a lot of ways. Do I just do that by raw facts, or do I tell them the story of the Manhattan Project, the atomic bomb? Because that not only gave me a chance to teach the facts, but it also gave me a chance to talk about that device, that weapon. Just a quick disclaimer, I was in a Catholic school, so it was a little easier to do those things. But the point is that news agencies, they pick and choose, and we need to be careful about that because, because of the way they're picking, they are trying to influence us. And so it is, here's the facts, and then here's this other voice underneath, this subtle voice trying to make sure that we learn to agree with them. They're right, of course, and so we want to agree with them, and they want to get us not to listen to anybody else. Same thing is true with music. For the teens, you need to be careful about this. Sure, music is great, the actual music, but then there's all those lyrics underneath. For the adults, we read wonderful books, but not every book is wonderful, and not every book has, some books have these subtle messages in them. Same with movies. We just need to be careful. So I think the lesson for us today is just really two things. First, I think it really matters that you and I know what voices we listen to. So I'd encourage you to take some time to think about it, to actually sit down and consider what you and I are listening to. You might be surprised that the voices are so many and varied, but you also might pick out one or two that seem to be prominent. And then you might ask yourself, is that voice of the Lord? Because if it's not, then why are we listening to it all the time? And the other thing you might consider is, do you and I give the Lord a chance to talk to us? Some people, just by virtue of the way they were raised or whatever, first thing they do, they get up, they turn on the radio, they turn on a TV. Teens, I don't know, some people, I think, they stick those earbuds in first thing in the morning. And so there's always sound. Even for some people, when they pray, they're never quiet. They're praying a rosary, a wonderful prayer, of course, but they're praying this, and then they open up a book, and they pray this, and they pray this, and they pray this. They never sit in silence. And so if I could offer you one bit of practical advice as you leave, and especially if I might add for teenagers, you're not going to like this, but I mean this. We all need some quiet in our lives, where there is nothing going on. We're not reading something, we're not watching something, we're not listening to something. It is just quiet. It may drive you nuts. For a teen, I don't know, maybe for some of the adults, 60 seconds of this, you might just be beside yourself. But it will be helpful to you. Trust me on this. I can back this up with scripture. I can back this up with scientific research. The point is that quiet will help us. Because if nothing else, well, probably the best part of it, we'll give ourselves a chance to potentially tune in and listen to the voice of God. And would that not be a wonderful thing? Because then we hear this gospel reading, and it says, "This is my beloved son, listen to him." And you and I could look and go like, yeah, I do.